When you look at everything happening around the Cowboys right now, you can almost feel the shift in the air. Something changed inside that locker room, and it wasn't a small thing. It wasn't just a bad practice, or a rough week, or the usual noise that surrounds this team. This time it started with Dak Prescott drawing a line. And not the quiet, behind-the-scenes kind of line he usually draws. This one came with a tone that surprised a lot of people around the league. You know Dak. Calm, composed, always measured. He's never been the type to point fingers or stir things up publicly. But when the leader of your team finally speaks up with that level of conviction, you know something real is happening. You know there has been pressure building behind the scenes that fans weren't supposed to see. And now it's spilling out. From what insiders are whispering, this isn't about a missed throw, a bad route, or a botched assignment. Dak didn't erupt over football details. He erupted over culture. And for a quarterback who's built his entire reputation on stabilizing the locker room, that tells you a lot. It tells you that whatever he's been watching unfold around him finally crossed a line he wasn't willing to ignore. Every team talks about brotherhood, accountability, chemistry, all those words fans hear every season. But behind closed doors, sometimes those foundations start cracking long before anyone on the outside realizes. Dak saw those cracks forming. He saw attitudes shifting. He saw standards slipping. And from what people close to the team are suggesting, he finally decided that being quiet wasn't helping anymore. Now, here's the thing most people won't admit out loud. When your franchise quarterback speaks up, everyone listens, even the people who wish he hadn't said anything at all. Some teammates took his comments as the wake-up call they needed. Others, not so much. And you can imagine the tension that creates. When a guy like Dak steps forward and says enough is enough, he's not talking to one player. He's talking to the entire room. And that kind of honesty forces everybody to look in the mirror. If you were in Dak's shoes, watching effort slip, watching focus dip, watching little behaviors pile up, would you speak up too? That's actually a question I want to ask you directly. Do you believe a star quarterback should call out cultural issues when he sees them? Yes or no? I'm curious where you stand on that, because moments like this are rare, and they say a lot about the direction a team is heading. And look, before we dive deeper into everything swirling around this situation, let me ask one more thing. If you want to keep getting these breakdowns the moment they drop, make sure you're subscribed to help us push toward that 17,000 subscriber milestone. It helps the channel more than you realize, and it keeps Cowboys fans like you connected to every twist happening inside this organization. What comes next for this team depends on how the locker room responds to Dak taking this stand. And trust me, we're just getting started. When you really start digging into what's happening behind the scenes, the picture gets even more complicated. The tension inside that Cowboys locker room isn't coming from one moment or one disagreement. From what insiders are hinting at, it's been building slowly, almost quietly, the kind of thing you only notice if you're in that room every day. Dak Prescott didn't just wake up frustrated. He watched habits shift. He watched a certain attitude start creeping in from one corner of the locker room and spreading into places it didn't belong. And eventually, it became something he couldn't ignore anymore. That's why his comments hit so hard. They weren't emotional outbursts. They were warnings. Some players, especially the veterans who've been through enough seasons to understand how fragile chemistry can be, seem to agree with him. They've seen what happens when a locker room starts, pulling in different directions. It doesn't matter how talented the roster is, or how explosive the offense looks on paper, or how many Pro Bowlers you have on defense. If the culture fractures, the season follows. But others inside the team reportedly feel uncomfortable, even defensive. When someone calls out accountability issues, even indirectly, the players not giving their best are the first ones to feel exposed. And that's when cliques form. That's when whispers start. That's when eyes start shifting during meetings. It creates this quiet, heavy atmosphere where everyone knows something isn't right, but no one wants to be the first to admit it. What makes all of this even more interesting is how it's spilling into public interpretation. Fans are analyzing body language. Analysts are rewatching sideline clips. Reporters are picking apart press conferences, looking for clues. But the truth is, the real story is inside those walls. And right now, it sounds like practices, team, dinners, and even simple group conversations have turned into subtle tests of loyalty. Imagine being in a room where every comment, every gesture, every sideways glance feels like it carries weight. That's the kind of tension insiders are describing. And it is not normal for this team. I want to ask you something directly, because your perspective matters here. Do you think calling out toxic behavior, without naming names, is the right move for a leader? Or do you think it risks dividing the locker room even more? Drop your answer in the comments, because fans are split on this, and I want to know where you stand. And while you're here, if you're not already subscribed, do me a favor. Hit that button and help push this channel toward our goal of 17,000 subscribers. These deep dives take time, and your support keeps this community growing and keeps you connected to every twist in this ongoing story. Everything brewing inside that locker room is shaping what comes next. And trust me, the ripple effects aren't just emotional, they're strategic. Let's talk about that next. Here's where the situation starts shifting from tension to transformation. Dak Prescott's stance isn't just causing reactions among players. It's forcing the Cowboys organization to rethink how they evaluate leadership, behavior, and accountability on every level. And what's fascinating is that insiders say this isn't the first time the team has noticed certain patterns. It's just the first time someone with Prescott's influence decided to put a spotlight on them. From what's being whispered, the coaching staff is now walking a tightrope. On one hand, they need to support their quarterback because he's the heartbeat of the team. On the other hand, they can't afford to lose control of the locker room or create the impression that one player is dictating the culture. But that's the thing about leadership in the NFL. When the franchise quarterback speaks, everyone listens. Coaches, rookies, veterans, even the front office. And Prescott's message is reportedly loud and clear. Get aligned or get left behind. This is why analysts think this could lead to more than just conversations. We're talking potential roster movement, subtle benchings, shifts in practice reps, maybe even internal culture programs being revamped. When accountability becomes the topic, everybody gets evaluated differently. And that means decisions that would normally be postponed might start happening sooner. Every player's commitment is now on display, and insiders say the team is already taking note of who is stepping up and who is shrinking in the spotlight. Rival teams are paying attention too. That's how much this story has shaken the league. When a quarterback takes this kind of stance, it sets an example. It signals that star players aren't just playmakers, they're culture setters. And this could become a trend across the NFL. Leaders calling out toxic influences instead of silently dealing with them. Before we move on, let me get your take on something. If you were running the Cowboys, would you make personnel changes right now to protect the culture? Yes or no? I want to see where the real fans stand, because this kind of decision can determine a team's entire identity moving forward. And while you're thinking about that, make sure you're subscribed. The road to 17,000 is in sight, and your support keeps these deep dive updates coming. Hit that like button too. It really helps push the AVD video to more Cowboys fans who need to hear what's happening behind the scenes. Up next, we get into the heart of Dak's frustration and why this moment might define the Cowboys for years. Now we enter the turning point of this entire situation. The moment where Dak Prescott's words stop being just a reaction and start becoming a catalyst. According to insiders, this tension inside the Cowboys' locker room didn't erupt overnight. It's been building quietly, piece by piece, through repeated behaviors that chipped away at the culture Prescott has tried to uphold for years. What finally pushed him to speak out wasn't a single explosive moment. It was the accumulation of small acts that signaled something deeper was slipping: focus, unity, and accountability. People close to the team say Prescott didn't begin this by going public. He tried handling things the old-fashioned way: quiet conversations, subtle guidance, private leadership. But when the same issues kept resurfacing, when the same attitudes continued dragging on morale, he made a decision. He wasn't going to let it slide anymore. He wasn't going to watch the fabric of the locker room unravel in silence. That's when the tone shifted. That's when he made the statements that everyone is talking about. And what he said wasn't about attacking teammates. It was about drawing a line. Insiders reveal that certain players have shown patterns of effort issues, divisive attitudes, and a lack of professionalism that simply didn't align with the standards set by the team's leaders. That's the type of thing that quietly poisons a season if it's not addressed. Prescott stepped in because, in his mind, the culture needed protecting more than any individual needed shielding. But here's where things really get interesting. Analysts believe this isn't just about discipline. It's about the identity of the Dallas Cowboys moving forward. How the front office responds to this moment could shape the team for years. Some insiders even believe that the ripple effects of Prescott's call-out are already prompting the coaching staff to reevaluate roles, expectations, and the way players are held accountable. Every interaction is being scrutinized. Every practice rep feels heavier. Every meeting has a new energy behind it. Rival teams are watching closely, not because of drama, but because this is setting a precedent. A franchise quarterback stepping into the cultural leadership role so directly is rare. And when someone with Prescott's consistency and reliability does it, the impact spreads far beyond one locker room. Analysts suggest other teams may adopt a similar model, encouraging star players to voice concerns before internal issues become public disasters. Let me ask you something to keep this conversation rolling. Do you think a quarterback should have this kind of influence on locker room culture? Or should that responsibility fall more on the coaching staff? Drop a simple QB or coaches down below. I want to see how Cowboys fans divide on this one. And while you're here, don't forget to subscribe. We're pushing hard toward that 17,000 subscriber goal, and every new supporter helps keep these deep-level updates coming your way. Hit that like button too. It tells YouTube that Cowboys fans are engaged and ready for real insight, not just surface-level headlines. The next section takes us into the broader impact of Prescott's stance and how the entire NFL is interpreting this moment. Would this spark league-wide change? Could the Cowboys become the model for cultural accountability? Let's dig deeper.